my great pleasure today to introduce the guest speaker, Cindy Hounsell, who's president of the Women's Institute for Secure Retirement, or WISER. When I left Social Security about 5 years ago, Social Security's motto is, we'll get you money quickly, but please don't try to call us on the phone. We were going to form WISER, the Men's Institute for Secure Retirement. But, you know, as evidenced by a certain presidential candidate who follows his own guidance, you know that men don't listen to anything anybody else has to say. His name also begins with a T, but I won't say his name. I first met Cindy during the Clinton glory years. Sequel may be forthcoming in January, we'll have to see. She worked for the Pension Rights Center after she received her law degree. And before that, I think she was president of the Pam Ann Stewardess Union, where she had firsthand experience with the now all too common battle over promised pension benefits. She quickly noticed at the Pension Rights Center that most of the calls were coming from women, being in tough circumstances due to their lack of financial knowledge and resources, often made worse by less than stellar choices when it came to their first spouses, men. So Cindy has gone on for the last 20 years, WISER's in its 20th year. I am a WISER Fellow, so I actually did become a WISER Fellow after I left Social Security. She's done a lot of things. Her complete bio is in the folder, but based on what Star said, I'd like to point out two of them in particularly. She is a board member of the National Alliance for Caregiving, and she received the Collaboration Award from the National Association of Adult Protective Services. She's one of the top 50 influences on aging in the country. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you Cindy Hounsell, the president of WISER. Who's dressed in Ravens colors.
Thanks, Rusty. It's my great pleasure to be here with you all today, and since Rusty brought up my past, which was president of a flight attendant union, and I heard somebody saying coffee, tea, or me. I thought I'd mention why I got started in this in the first place, and that was that our pension was frozen back in 1983, and none of us had any idea really what that meant. And of course, the joke was that the pilots ended up getting a 401k. None of us knew that either. It was some big secret. People would say, you know, the pilots got something with a K. And it was the law had just been passed, but you know, nobody let that information out. It was all sort of hush-hush. And you can imagine what that meant. So my pension was frozen for over 30 years before I started. I could collect it at 60. Many of my friends, you could collect it at 50. Many of my friends collected it at 50 because they'd lost their jobs, and that's what happens to a lot of people. But when I was at the Pension Rights Center, every story was just a nightmare, and it was older women in their 80s who had no resources. Many of them had followed their husbands, you know, around the world with the military, or you know, followed them around the country, and had no benefits themselves, and many of them weren't even eligible for Social Security because of where their husbands had worked. So I answered a letter in what is the one? Women's Day. And it was just a very simple question a widow had written in, and they got the largest response in the history of the magazine. And so what I knew was, which is still true today, I could be writing the book called No One Knows Anything. And that's because it's complicated, as you know. It changes all the time, things happen, that, you know, you said this all along, this is the way it was, and then something changes all of it. Like Social Security made a change just before the, not Social Security, but there was a change in the Budget Act about the way you collect your Social Security benefits, and that sort of flips things around for a lot of people who are relying on their spousal benefits to push their own benefits higher. So one of the things I like to say to people is that know the rules of the system that you're relying on. And that system may be a spouse sitting next to you. So you better know what his system is or her system is, because people will do that all the time. They will come. I used to make jokes when I was the union rep that nobody wanted to know anything until the day before it was happening. So people would say, I didn't know my retirement didn't cover the blah blah. Yeah, it's out there, it's in the book. You know, when are you planning on retiring? Next week? Yeah, well, you know, or I'm putting in my notice for 30 days. You needed to do that a few years ago if you needed extra money. So my sort of purpose here today, because I was told by the working committee that I should speak on about 25 different things, and I have way too many slides, and Teresa's going to, when I go like this, she's going to keep flipping them, since I can't stretch my computer from over there to here. But I'm around afterwards, and then you'll know where we are if you have questions to ask, because we have a ton of resources. That's what we've been developing over the last 20 years. And so when I realized how I kept saying we need to back up. I was on this very prestigious Medicare commission, which was one of the worst experiences of my life, because the reason I was put on there was they were going to start doing this education. I kept telling them, the average person, which is still true today, people don't know really the age of when it starts. I'll have people come up in my neighborhood and go, oh, you're the one that knows about that retirement stuff. You know, the Medicare age has been moved up to 66. I go, no, it hasn't. It's still 65. Oh, no, I asked, whatever. I just smile and go, okay, good, thanks, I'll let everyone know. Because people get these bits of information. Of course, what happens is if you sign up late, as you all know, there's a penalty. And there's not a penalty for 2 months. There's a penalty for the rest of your life. So that's why it's really important to know these systems, because otherwise you're going to get whacked. That could be the other title of a thing, whacked, with a different meaning. Whacked financially with all of these things, because people don't tell you. It's not so easy to get the information in a way that most people can understand it. And I've been shocked myself. I'm always finding out new things. Regular IRAs, you can't put anything in until after age 70, but the Roth you can put in, but you have to have earnings, so anybody would be eligible. But anyway, I just thought it's one of those kind of good news. I've been giving you nothing but depressing news, so let's go with the good news here for a minute. Anyway, and then here's some of the things. You can't afford retirement, so here's some of the things you can do and learn more about, taking a second job, as I just mentioned. It's hard for people to save more, but we have a lot of these programs that we've done in the past with moderate, lower income women, no pensions, no whatever, and people want to save. They really, really do. They may not have a lot of money to save, and that's the other good thing about the MyRA. You have to put in $25 to start up, but then you only need to put in $5 after that, as low as $5. So it's a good, you can put a lot more in, but you can only.
What is the website for that?
I'm sorry?
Treasury.gov.
Just Google MyRA Treasury.gov and you'll find it. It has 3 buttons. It's really easy to sign up. So anyway, these are other things that men can do. And then the last one, reverse mortgage is big too, obviously, but they're more, the people that I talk to say it's more of a last resort, because there are a lot of ways to get in trouble there. And if I'm offending anybody who's the biggest fan of reverse mortgages, come see me. We can argue about it in the hallway or whatever. So, and then home sharing. That seems to be a big movement, the Golden Girls, like among a lot of women and all that. So, okay. And then there are a lot of these. Keep going, Therese. So the caregiver cost drain. As I said, I wanted to see some of the numbers. So there's a lot of legislation now about caregivers, and it's a big campaign issue because people are talking about if you've been doing so much caregiving, you would get Social Security credits, like if you've been out of the workforce and all of that. But anyway, this is kind of a typical, this is a study, this is sort of who the average caregiver is. And they have out-of-pocket costs, so there's some bills. I think there might be a slide on that, Therese, too. Oh yeah, all of these out-of-pocket costs add up. Go ahead. All of these things. And That's what they say. So we left a few of our flyers outside about caregivers, and what it recommends is having, there are sibling agreements now. So there's lots of different ways. Most of the stories that I knew when I've been doing this caregiver work really for over 15 years, and it was new, and the caregiver group that I'm on the board of kept saying to me, don't talk to caregivers about money, they're doing it from love. And I'm thinking, well, the ones that are calling me that, their parents die and they have nothing because they've used all their money and they lost their job, yes, they still love their parents, but they're out of pocket a lot of money and maybe they can't get back into the workforce. So we need to educate. You don't have to have one person taking the responsibility for everybody else. So that's sort of a new thing going around, that you can have these family agreements who will do whatever.
At what age do you recommend getting long-term care insurance?
Well, it's tricky, obviously, and there's such a big, a lot of the companies have gotten out of it. There used to be, 29 companies, and now there's 2. And actually, Genworth, and Rusty will know more about that. He can talk about it. But Genworth has just come up with a new program where, I don't know if people know what annuities are, how you buy an annuity, and I'm a fan of annuities, but they're hard to figure out, and how to get a basic one with not a lot of fees and all of that. And so this would be like an annuity. You would buy like a caregiving annuity.
Yeah,
So
they're not actually new products, they've been around for quite a while.
right, but the one that
There's
Genworth is
push now.
introducing is like a different thing now, and then that will get mimicked. And the only good thing about that is I think that helps. What I've seen in my experience is that people see somebody, close friends, I have close friends, and so another couple that were their best friends, the husband, kind of bankrupted everything. My friends immediately went out, and they're older than I am, but they went out in their late 60s, and they bought for over $10,000 a year, which they're still paying because now they're in their mid-80s. So they could have bought it before. He worked at a university. TIAA-CREF offered it at the time. They just never did it. So, I think it's learning about it, and it's hard. I mean, we have information on our website, but that changes all the time because of the way the products are being sold. People don't want to have to pay for all those years. So on Capitol Hill, what everyone says is that there will have to be something. Rusty also knows a lot about that. He goes to all those meetings. I mean, he won't sell you insurance, but he does know a lot about those issues and what is happening around that. Where I was working when WISER started, a foundation gave us a startup grant for 5 years. We got their benefits. They had it, I just bought it. I figured the premium was so low at the age I was, I had nothing to lose, no health care, whatever. So, all right, so the cord is coming around my neck. I'm gonna get yanked off here, just joking. But I appreciate your listening. What I wanted to say is if anyone in the audience has free time, wants to do a WISER program, we have a bunch of different training programs. We're always happy to pass that around. If you're doing a conference or whatever, you have a group of women, getting people just to talk about the issues so that in the end, you don't get whacked, right? My word of the day. So, yes.
Are you going to provide us with your slides so that we can?
Yes, I will, and I'll make sure that they have the slides. So, and then we have to Therese, go to the end to put up the last slide. I didn't go through all that because the previous speaker mentioned that you're going to have a World Elder Abuse Day, and you'll get a lot of the same information that we would be offering to you, but we do a lot of work on that, and we have a lot of that material on our website as well. So thank you for listening, and